Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. We are back on with my co-host, Steve Flink. We just previously recorded 6 days ago. My, oh my, is there a lot that has gone on since that last recording. This is our mid-tournament French Open pod. Our timing has been impeccable for this episode and last episode with, I guess, breaking news. Steve, welcome back. And you ready to roll?
I'm ready, David. You're right. Quite a bit has transpired since we last spoke, so let's get right to it.
Yeah, before we get to that again, just a reminder that if any of you have a question, of course you could hit me up on Twitter, social media, whatever. But if you have a question that you want to send via email, you could email Steve and myself at askdavidandsteve@gmail.com. Again, it's as simple as askdavidandsteve@gmail.com. We've already got a few questions in. Feel free to keep sending them in. Okay, with that, let's get right to it. We're recording this Sunday night. I'm going to try to release it later after we're done with the recording. If for some reason I can, it will be released the latest Monday night. But because things are so timely, I want to record this and release it tonight. So with that, we have to start with the big three and the news today. He hinted at it after his match last night. The news hit today. Roger Federer, after a grueling 4-set win over a very good Dominic Koepfer, had to withdraw from this year's event. Steve, I'll let you run with it. What are your thoughts on it?
No, he had obviously started off with an easy straight set win over Istomin, and then Cilic pushed him to 4. And then in this Koepfer match, there's a strange atmosphere, no fans, night match. And I don't think he knew exactly what to expect, but he certainly didn't expect to be playing over 3.5 hours. And that was a very unusual match, a very physical match. So it didn't shock me to hear him say that in the press conference, David, that he was considering not playing against Berrettini. He even went as far as not to answer a question about playing Berrettini. He didn't even want to get into that. So I thought, wow, he's really concerned about his body and certainly concerned about that knee. And therefore, it looks to me, I can't imagine he's going to wake up a day later and say, I'm just feeling great and I've got to play Berrettini. I think he wanted to protect himself for the grass because he obviously realizes Wimbledon is his prime objective. And he wasn't trying to diminish the French Open, but I think he just put himself through. That was as much as he could handle once the Koepfer match ended. It was one of the most physical matches I've seen him involved in for a very long time.
Koepfer, no, I would agree. He made
him play every point, David. Koepfer he was really digging out a lot of balls, extending the rallies, made Roger feel like he really was on a clay court. There are times where Roger can dictate to the extent that you think he's playing on hard again, but not last night, not in this contest. And so it really took a lot out of him. I understood the decision fully.
Yeah. So, I mean, when the news hit, you go on Twitter and you see all sort of, people's opinions, and including Patrick McEnroe. He said, look, I understand it. I don't like it. Again, Roger Federer, if anyone's going to have some leeway, give it to Roger Federer. If it was somebody else, I think the reaction would be slightly more harsh, maybe. But
well, you know what, David? Patrick's a very fair-minded guy. I know him well. And I will say this. I think what got Roger into some trouble was he kept saying before the tournament that people who say I can win this tournament, no, it's not. I can't. I'm almost 40 years old. He kept downplaying. Then he got there and he continued to sort of reinforce that notion, even after winning his first round, winning his second round. I'm not going to get out of the Djokovic quarter. So he was sort of bracing himself and his legion of supporters for the distinct possibility that it just was not going to break his way. But in the end, that maybe it made the decision come out in a less favorable light than it would have, because of all the talk that he had about not being able to win the tournament. And that's how it plays out.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Now, I want to ask you, and it's a hypothetical, and I try to stay away from these because, again, when you're dealing with hypotheticals, you'll never know what the real answer would be. But if it was match point and he absolutely knew that he would not be playing the next round, I'm not saying that was what was in his head. I don't think, you're playing a match to win the match. I don't think at any point during the match, he's like, oh God, there's no way I can play tomorrow. So that's why I'm kind of careful when I give these hypotheticals, but let me throw it out to you anyway, because there has been historical precedent of this. If Roger at match point knew absolutely that he was not playing the next round and he defaulted, that would be something. Do you think that would have been something that he would even have considered? Because I'll let you, the great tennis historian that you are, tell us that has happened in the past.
All right, well, let me just let our listeners in on what you're referring to. 1972, the year-end Masters Championships. Tom Gorman and Stan Smith, Davis Cup teammates. They had led the U.S. to victory in the Davis Cup in Romania just a few months earlier, Smith being the hero. But in any event, Gorman got up 2-1 and had a match point. He felt something wrong. He knew he had done something that was going to totally prohibit him from playing the final. And he did not want to do that to the tournament. He very gallantly defaulted to Smith at that very moment, up match point. Then, believe it or not, a year later in Boston, also in the year-end championships, John Newcomb landed badly after hitting an overhead against Tom Ocker. And that Newcomb was at match point, and he was hobbling around. It's some kind of a muscle tear or tendon, whatever it was. But I remember him hobbling on that and realizing there's no way I'm going to be able to play the final. And he also defaulted at that stage. So back-to-back years, we had, Tom Gorman and John Newcomb doing what was pretty noble of them. But this was different, David. This is totally different. Roger obviously felt a lot of wear and tear. It was an exhausting, debilitating battle. But I don't think he knew for sure. I think he knew he had taken a lot out of himself, and he knew he was going to have to weigh it on his day off and decide. Right. But no, I don't think he knew for certain. And I think, and then by the way, if he had, I think he would have said it in the press conference. I just think he knew there was a real possibility. So I don't really believe that was the case. And frankly, I think had he known for certain, I honestly believe I believe he would have gone up and shaken hands if he was.
I mean, he's so noble of a person. If he did that, if he actually knew, if it was like you said, a direct acute injury, and he knew, it wouldn't shock me if he would have defaulted up a match point too, just because of the guy he is. He's so noble. Interesting. Again,
I think
stay away a little.
On that level, I think he's got a lot of integrity, and I think he would have done it. But there was no certainty in his mind at that stage. So I think all he was thinking about is, I hope I can recover. I'm so glad I won.
He's trying to win the match at this point. He's not thinking about not playing the next round. It's so close. It wasn't like he's up 5-1 in the third set. It's 5-all in the third set. In the fourth set, he's trying to close it out.
Right. And he'd been in real danger of going down 2-1 because Koepfer was serving up a break 4-3 in the third, and then played a couple of bad games in a row to let Roger back in that set. So, and he knew that, if that tiebreaker had gotten away and he had to go 5, that could have been big trouble too, because he could have been looking at well over 4 hours of tennis. So
I know. Absolutely.
Nothing. I don't believe for a second there was anything certain in his mind. And obviously it's up to the opponent. I'm sure Koepfer is kicking himself in a way, thinking he could have won or had his chances. And you could see he was disgruntled at times. He got a point penalty because he was a little frustrated. I think he felt that this was an ideal time to play Roger, who's so short of match play. So that's how it goes. Berrettini gets the default now and goes on to the quarterfinals.
Yeah. One last thought before we leave Roger. I want to ask you, is this the last time we see Roger in Paris?
No, I lean toward not. I think somehow we might see another year out of him. It's a 50-50 in my mind, but I maybe go 51-49 in favor of him being back next year. But a lot of that, it's all going to depend on how well the knee holds up, what he does at Wimbledon, what he does at the U.S. Open. And I think at the end of the U.S. Open, the Grand Slam season ends, he'll do a lot of evaluating about where he is and whether he wants to carry on. But I tend to think, with his love of the game, that he's going to want to go one more year
with the crowd too. I mean, if he lost, there was no one in the crowd. How sad would it have? How sad would that have been?
Yeah, exactly. That would have been terrible. But no, I guess I lean just ever so slightly toward him coming back one more time.
Okay. The other two guys are the big three. Rafa just is rolling. He's won 32 sets in a row at Roland Garros. The record is 41 by Borg. He has an interesting match coming up against Jannik Sinner. Is there anything, everyone's pinning toward that Rafa Novak semi. Is there anything Sinner? I mean, Sinner's good. This is not going to be easy. Is there anything that you see getting in the way of that Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal semifinal?
Well, no, I still believe all things being equal, we're going to get the Djokovic Nadal semi, but you're right about Sinner. Now, Sinner is very dangerous. He played Rafa in the quarters at Roland Garros last year, served for the first set, should have won the first set. I don't think he would have gone on to win the match, but that his chance pretty much ended there. And then he played him in Rome just a few weeks ago and lost 5-4, but it's the closest 7-5, 6-4 match I have ever seen in my life. And he couldn't have played any better. And he was very unlucky not to get a set. And what I like about this kid, he's only 19, as you know, David, and he's just a fearless competitor, and he has great respect for the leaders in his trade, for the Djokovic's and Nadal's, but he's also not afraid of them. And he goes out there believing that he should beat them. He's got a great attitude that way, very positive attitude. So I think he'll go out there tomorrow fully believing that he can win. However, this is best of 5. It's Roland Garros. It's Rafa Nadal going for title number 14. I still think Nadal wins, but this time I do believe he drops a set. I'm looking for this one to be fairly tight, 4 sets, but Nadal the clear winner in the end.
All right, we shall see. Looking forward to seeing that match. The last of the 3, he's the world number 1. He's probably getting the least amount of press of the 3, but he's continuing to roll too. Novak Djokovic plays Musetti, and then he's not going to play Federer in the quarters. He's going to play Berrettini. Novak looking really good right now.
He is. I think he's looking forward to that Musetti match because I heard him talking about it the other day. And he respects Musetti's progress that he's made. He's practiced with him a bunch of times. And Musetti, is another 19-year-old like Sinner. Here are these pair of 19-year-old Italian upstarts going against the hierarchy of the game. And I think that Musetti will play well and test Novak more than Novak has been tested so far, because Novak hasn't even been taken beyond 6-4. I mean, Rafa at least had a tie break. He escaped a couple of set points in the first round against Poprin in the third set, and then had a 7-5 set with Gasquet. So even he's been tested a little bit more than Novak, but maybe Novak's draw has been slightly easier too. That'll be an interesting match because I think it's the kind of match that gets Novak a little bit nervous, which is good for him. You want that at this stage of the tournament, just as Rafa does too, in a way. Once you get to the 16s and where you're heading down the home stretch, you want somebody out there that makes you just a little uneasy and can perhaps bring the best out of you. Those will be 2 fun matches to watch in Djokovic and Nadal facing the young Italians.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I want to go towards, I want to speak a little bit about the American men, because you and I have done a previous podcast about the historical struggles that the American men have had at Roland Garros. And 4 Americans made the 3rd round. Should have been 5 Americans. Is Mackie McDonald, and I'm a big fan of Mackie. Mackie had his chances. He should have won that match and got in to the 3rd round. And I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer here, because I'm a huge supporter of American tennis. But even with those 4 Americans that made it, I kind of felt like it was fool's gold. I didn't think any of the 4 had a real chance to do any real damage. Isner and Opelka just had to obviously serve bombs, give their opponents no rhythm at all, and maybe try to get it into tiebreakers. That didn't happen. I think the one American who had the best chance of doing it was the guy who won a tournament coming into French Open. Unfortunately, he had some physical issues, lost in the first round, Sebastian Corda. You and I have talked about how highly we both think of him, and a lot of people think so highly on Sebastian Corda. I also want to throw out a name that people have not talked about when you're talking about American men lately. There was a challenger in Little Rock, Arkansas, and in my opinion, the best doubles player on the planet, and a former top 10 singles player. He's not in the top 10 for a variety of reasons. People who have followed me no, I've talked about Jack Sock a lot, but Jack Sock won a challenger today. So his ranking is obviously way down there. It'll be interesting to see if he can climb his way back. The ranking system's a little weird right now. It's hard to make a lot of progress, just how it is. But David, it was good that the 4 Americans made it. I just didn't really feel like there was any real threat to do any real damage.
Well, yeah, I agree. I believe that as well. A couple of quick thoughts, though. I will say this. Isner played some of the most inspired tennis I've seen from him in a long, long time. The first 3 sets against Stefanos Tsitsipas. And John won the first set 7-5, got broken once in the second, they go to a third set tiebreak, and he didn't serve well in the third set tiebreak. That killed his chances. But I was impressed. It was, I think we might see some very good tennis from Isner over the summer now, because I think he's starting to raise his level. And I totally agree on Corda. I really believe Corda was hurt. I don't think we're going to hear much about it. It's on an outside court. It didn't get a lot of play, but I don't think he's the kind of guy that was just going to have that letdown so quickly in the first round after winning a title. And I'm sorry we didn't get to see him play Stefanos Tsitsipas. It would have been a fun match to see. But he's going to do great things the rest of this year. Now the clay court season's ending. Wait till we see him get on those hard courts over the summer. Corda, in my opinion, will finish the year inside the top 30.
He's that good, and he has that big of an upside. So I'm not going to bet against you on that fact right there. I'm a huge fan of Sebastian Corda. We shall see. I want to switch over to the women's side of the draw now, because there's some interesting things going on that side of the on the women's side of the draw as well. And I was disappointed. I was really looking forward to seeing Jen Brady versus Coco Gauff. Very interested in watching that match. It was a 6-1 set. Coco Gauff really fast. You knew something was wrong with Jen Brady. You heard after, her foot was bothering him, plantar fasciitis, which is not fun to deal with. That would have been a fun one to look at. Coco's been playing great as of late. We all know Jen, with last year's US Open making the semis, this year's Australian making the finals. That was a fun match. I was looking forward to seeing. You.
Absolutely. I was very disappointed about that it came to that. I believe that Coco on this surface would probably have won anyway, but nothing like that. And
right.
You never want to see that. It's a very appealing matchup between two great Americans. I hope we'll see Coco and Brady meet a few times in the hard court circuit over the summer, because Brady, we know what she can do on hard courts. She was lost to Osaka in the semis of the US Open last year and the finals of the Australian this year. She's really coming on strong on hard. So and meantime, Coco just keeps improving by leaps and bounds. So that I think we'll see them meet a few times in a very important contest later this year.
I hope so. I hope you're right. Coco has a very interesting opponent, and she doesn't get a ton of publicity in the United States, but for you tennis fans, Coco plays Ons Jabeur. And you tennis fans got to see Ons play. She has incredible amount of variety. She's not your typical tennis player that you see all the time, just staying at the back of the court, just banging balls left and right. She has incredible variety. She can be a nightmare to play. They have played a couple times. I think Coco's up 2-1 head-to-head, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm right on that. It's going to be an interesting match. I know you've seen Ons play a lot. You think Coco can get by this one?
Well, I think we could very well be seeing a tight 3-set contest. I do think Coco, and I think Coco has a lot of confidence right now. We talked about her at the beginning of the tournament. She's looked very good so far. Forget the Brady match, but even before that, I think she's been very composed, and she's not intimidated about being at this stage of the tournament and trying to take it much deeper. So I still like her chances of squeezing through that match, but I think it's going to be very close.
Yeah. And the winner of that match plays a resurgent Sloane Stevens that came out of nowhere. There are a few reasons I think Sloane has struggled in the past. Most recently, I know she was dealing with some personal losses, in her family and stuff like that. But it is so nice to see her on the court, not only playing well, but smiling, because she's got a great personality. And it's you haven't seen that out of her in a long time. If Sloane wins, and then again, the winner of Coco and Ons Jabeur, that's going to be an interesting quarterfinal match.
No matter what, Sloane has done herself an enormous amount of good with what she's done in this tournament by knocking off Pliskova, by beating Muchova. I mean, she's had 2 really good wins over seeded players, and she's reminding herself that stage, David, back in 17 and 18, when she won the US Open so impressively, and then went on to the finals of the French the next year, and the finals of the year-end championships as well, losing both to Halep. She's getting back to that form, and when she's in that form, she's awfully tough to beat, and she's great to watch. So more than the smile, she brings a smile to my face when she plays that kind of tennis. So yeah, I too would like to see her love to see her play Coco. That would be so enjoyable if they were able to meet here at Roland Garros.
That would be something. Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. Yeah, obviously not going to do this episode without talking about the greatest female tennis player of all time and Serena Williams. And, it's funny, and it's no secret here. When I have you on and when I have other guests on, I draft up talking points, and it's kind of loose, but we just kind of use it as a guide, as a course for our discussion. And one of the topics today was, looking forward to that Serena Victoria Azarenka potential quarterfinal match. We both know, and the tennis world knows, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Two very good tennis players got in the way to prevent that match from happening. Serena, the draw was opening up very nicely for her, but she did not get through today. And again, it's the age-old question that we've been asking for a while. Does she have another one in her? And does Roger have another one in her? And I'll let you talk about Serena a little bit.
Well, I don't think it was ever in the cards. I didn't really buy into the notion that about the draw opening up, because I never felt that there was a good draw for Serena on the clay, given how she'd been playing heading in here. In other words, I don't equate this with her going back to Wimbledon or the US Open, where I think she's much more dangerous. And I think she did a nice job. She kind of willed her way into the round of 16, but then she got really outplayed, lost in straight, and deserved to lose. I don't mean that in a nasty way. I just mean that she just couldn't find the formula to get on top of the rallies. The other girl beat her to the punch and hit a lot of winners, deep returns, setting up winners, and served really well when she had to. And even though Serena broke back twice in the second set, it wasn't enough. But I'm not shocked. This is Roland Garros. I don't think it's a tournament she's going to win again. I don't think it was ever likely that she's going to win this time, but I do think she'll get herself really psyched up, geared up for Wimbledon and the US Open, where she's going to be considerably more of a threat. There, I think we'll see her in the thick of things. Whether she can pull it off, I don't know, because we saw her get to 4 finals, David, the 2 Wimbledons, 2 US Opens in a row in 18 and 19, and lost to 4 different players on those occasions. And then since then, the semis of the US Open last year, Azarenka came back and beat her, and then she lost to Naomi in the semis of Australia this year. So she's been in the penultimate round a couple of times, bunch of those finals, and it's a lot of different players have been able to stand up to her on those big occasions. So I worry about the wider net out there, the wider cast of players that on a given day can beat Serena, but I don't rule it out by any means. And I think she's going to go full force after both Wimbledon and the US Open this year, knowing that she wants to cash in on her opportunities now.
Yeah, I mean, tennis fans, don't despair, because like Roger said it, he's preparing. He's done all this preparation to prepare for Wimbledon. You just heard Steve talk about how Serena's going to be focused on Wimbledon. This was both clearly not their best shot. Roger even said it, like we said earlier in the podcast. He knew he was not going to win at Roland Garros. Don't despair. These two are going to make a run before it's all out. And, on both sides, right? I wouldn't be surprised if either of them don't win, but I wouldn't be surprised if either of them do win another major. So that's what makes.
I think she's a little better positioned, David, in the sense that, I mean, again, I don't rule it out for Roger either. He's, one of the great grass court players of all time. I would rank Sampras ahead of him, but Roger is right up there. And he loves Wimbledon, and his game is so tailor-made for the surface. Having said that, given this long missing last year and the 2 knee surgeries and how little he's played this year, and just trying to get back to, it's still a tall order for him to reach peak form over that fortnight at Wimbledon this year. And if he does it, it would be perhaps the greatest accomplishment of his career if he managed to pull it off now as he approaches the age of 40.
Yeah, before we conclude, I want to throw out, I don't know, 1 or 2 matches for you. Maybe make a call on it. I'm looking at this. This match keeps showing up right in front of me. Sophia Kenin versus Maria Soccery. That's going to be a good one. Kenin made the finals last year. She lost to Swiatek, who we haven't even talked to yet. And Swiatek's been playing unbelievable.
Yes. I still favor her, David. I felt all along. I mean, I think I might have said in the last one, if you ask me to pick one player, I'm going with her to defend her title.
That's still your pick. Your pick.
But I also really am looking forward to this Kenin Sakkari match, because I mean, Kenin is such a ferocious competitor and so adaptable, and Soccery is so cagey and quick and cunning that I think we're going to see a lot of, it's going to be first-rate tennis across the board, as was the Kenin match against Pagula, the American.
Yep.
That was a very well-played 3-set match, and Kenin came from behind to win that one. And this one likely will go the distance as well. But I do love the way Kenin is playing right now, and I'm not even going to pick a winner there, but I think it's going right down to the wire. They're both in good form.
Fair enough. All right, but we're going with Swiatek with your we're sticking with Swiatek with your winner on the women's side. The men's side, one match that we have not talked about that's very intriguing. The quarterfinal is Stefanos Tsitsipas versus Daniil Medvedev, who all of a sudden is playing this clay court like a hard court. Intriguing matchup. What's your pick on that one?
You said it so beautifully. Suddenly he's decided there isn't any difference. Prior to the Medvedev, who's had some modest success on clay in the past, not at Roland Garros, but he was talking himself into all kinds of dark corners and saying how he didn't understand clay. He didn't know how to play on clay. He didn't know how to make his game effective on clay. So he came in here with very low expectations, and with everybody else having low expectations for him. And he's blitzed into the quarterfinals. He has a 6-1 career edge over Tsitsipas. He beat him in the semis of the Australian comfortably this year. So you look at those facts, and yet you see Stefanos, who's had the great clay court circuit this year, and you say, wait a minute, this is just inevitably going to be. I want it. I'm going to be greedy. I want 5 sets. I want a 10-8 in the 5th either way, and because I believe they both want it so badly, and they both understand the opportunity. Win that quarter, and you might play Sasha Zverev in the semis, and you might be in the finals. Now, I'm not saying they're shoo-ins to beat Sasha, because Sasha's playing really well. But I mean that they know they're not looking at Rafa or Novak for a semifinal. They're on the right half of the draw in that sense. So I can't wait to see that one, to see if Medvedev's composure and just his clay court acumen continues the way we've seen it thus far, or whether Tsitsipas stays at the level he's been at on the clay the entire circuit since he won Monte Carlo, and whether he can sort of start making inroads in this rivalry and beat Medvedev for the second time.
It will be a fun one to watch for sure. I'll tell you that. I mean, I'll ask you who you're. It's a 2-part question. You've already answered the second part earlier, but we'll see if you're consistent. Who's your pick on the men's side? I mean, is it Rafa?
I mean, I still can't. I still have to go with him. Right. But what I want is a Rafa. I want the Rafa Novak semi, and I want them.
As does everybody. Because
I believe that Djokovic, for whatever the reasons last year, was just a pale imitation of himself, especially in the first 2 sets. And that's taking nothing away from Rafa, who was brilliant. But we should never have seen a love 2 and 5 match. That just shouldn't have happened. And I don't think it would happen again. And I want to see Djokovic back in good form, and the two of them pushing each other to the hilt. And maybe we could get something like the 2013 semifinal that Rafa finally eked out in 5 glorious sets. That's the kind of match I'm hoping we'll get from the two of them, as long as they can make it through to the penultimate round. Odds are that they will.
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered it twice. But my next question was, is the consecutive set streak going to be intact when Rafa wins number 14? If Rafa wins number 14, you kind of answered that already. I think you said Sinner was going to win a set, and you think Novak will take a set or 2.
Yes, absolutely. And I think also there's a potential that if Rafa beats Sinner in 4, that perhaps he'd lose a set to Schwartzman in the quarters. He didn't lose a set to him last year in the semis, but he had come off a loss to Diego in Rome. And Schwartzman is a fierce competitor himself. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Rafa losing sets, a couple of sets on the way to to taking this title. I don't think we're going to see a kind of a majestic straight set sweep, 7 straight matches. I'd be very surprised if he managed to pull that off. If he does, I tip my hat. But I see him tested severely by Sinner, but winning in 4, and then moving on to that semi, and perhaps having a really hard fought 5-setter with Novak. That's what the fans would want, and that's what I want.
I would not be surprised if he does lose sets, and I would not be surprised if he doesn't lose sets. He's that damn good on this surface, and it's just miraculous what he's doing. The next time we speak, we're going to have a winner on both sides. It's something, man. I mean, it goes so fast. I remember we did it. The last episode was Memorial Day. That was the second day of the tournament because they started it on Sunday, and we had the news of Naomi Osaka's withdrawal. We did it today. We had Roger Federer's announcement of him withdrawing earlier. The timing's been good to record. Again, the next time we speak, we're going to have a winner. I'm with you. I'd be crazy to bet against the King of Clay and number 14. I don't know if he'll, like I said, if he wins 21 sets in a row, it wouldn't surprise me. If he has to struggle a little bit, that wouldn't surprise me as well. But I think he comes out on top. It's crazy.
Well, the scary thing, David, is that, you know, he didn't ever like the conditions last year. It didn't stop him from going through the tournament and not losing a set and crushing no finals, but he didn't like the cooler weather, the balls. There were a lot of things bothering him coming in. It didn't stop him from having one of his most efficient French Opens ever. Now, this time, the conditions, he has said, are ideal for him. That's a scary prospect for the others. But we have some really enticing matchups coming up, starting tomorrow with Sinner. So let's let them play out, and let's hope they're hard-fought, close contests. I want Rafa to be challenged, but that doesn't mean he's going to lose.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm so excited to see the remainder of this tournament. Steve, thanks again for taking time and going through the tournament with us. And again, next time we speak, we're going to have a winner on both sides.
Look forward to it, David. It'll be a lot of fun to look back on the fortnight and see how it all unfolds in the coming days.
Thanks so much.